Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final lightning talk of the VocTech Showcase. It's myself introing. Apparently, I'm the host. I'm going to hand over to Kev, who's going to actually give you all of the key info. We're going to do a little bit on what we've done in this space at UFI with the Digital Badging Commission. And then, as I say, Kev's going to give you a step-by-step process to implementing digital badging in your organisation, some technical considerations, and time for a Q&A. So in the theme of a lightning talk, I'll move quickly on. So Digital Badging Commission, UFI supported the RSA in delivering the Digital Badging Commission over the last couple of years. We spoke with all sorts of different organisations in all different parts of the skills system, policy leaders, thinkers, people in assessment and qualifications, and out of that we produced a series of different things. We produced exemplar digital badges, so a guide to how to digitally badge. We renewed the RSA's digital badging standard. That's a framework by which you can implement digital badging in your organisation. And we produced a final report that had some recommendations for all sorts of different organisations, including government, employers, people in the skills system. First of all, we were recommending that digital badges and credentials should be integrated across the post-16 formal education space. We recommended to government a recommendation that has been partially taken up, that there should be a national skills wallet established to support lifelong learning. At the moment, the government is interested in how skills passports, as they call it, really annoyingly, they haven't taken our name, but skills passports can be introduced in different sectors and places all over the UK, and we're currently working with them on thinking about how that can be done. And then also a national registry for digital credential quality assurance, which will allow people to judge the quality of different digital badges and credentials against one another as the system develops. I'm going to hand over to Kev now. He's going to take you through the actual practical considerations of what you might want to do when thinking about digital badging in your organisation. Over to you, Kev.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. So, very, very quick badge 101 for any of you who are not familiar with it. Essentially, a digital badge is a digital credential. It's an image, and behind that image is some data. And that data is what makes it digital and shareable and verifiable. And that data, often called the metadata, stores what did you have to do in order to earn that badge, who gave it, when did they give it, and super importantly, it can contain links to evidence. So that could be videos, images, documents, anything you like that you can bake into that digital badge. And it's secure, so it's tamper-proof. I can't, after the event, go back in and modify that metadata. So you've created a secure credential, and they're entirely flexible, okay? You can create one today to recognize a skill or a behavior or an attitude. And a specific subset of digital badges called open badges adhere to a global standard, so interoperable between different platforms like LinkedIn and LMSs, so you can share them, and all of that data is readable, machine readable. Okay. So I'm going to share a three-step process of how you could introduce or implement digital badges within your organization. And the three-step process, really, is first to design your framework, decide what you're badging, decide what you're recognizing, then issue, and then for your users to share. So this part here, this 2 and 3, is ongoing. It's the upfront kind of design and thinking stage that is kind of done initially. It's the hardest part. These two are solved, they're easy, okay? But actually it's the kind of design stage that I really want to sort of drill into today. Okay, so that's your three-step process. Thanks very much. So, step 1, design. I think the most important thing to think about is basically why are you badging? And there's 3 lenses that you should consider this through. And the first one, surprise, surprise, is from the earner or the learner's perspective. So what is it that they're interested in? What are they getting out of a badge? Now, I think that one of the most important areas for this is the ability, you're giving them the ability to articulate their skills. And this is what I've seen kind of time and time again over the last 10 years, is we all know that classic interview question of, give me an example when you demonstrated X, Y, and Z. Is it problem solving or teamwork or dealing with conflict? The very act of linking a piece of evidence from your world and your life to a digital badge makes that kind of cognitive link that they can draw upon later. So they haven't got to rethink or invent a situation where they demonstrated problem-solving skills. They can think back to 6 months ago when they had to think really clearly about what did they do to demonstrate that skill, and then that's in their head as a kind of a hook and a trigger to help in that interview situation. So articulation skills, visualizing progress. Okay, it may be that you provide some program or work. You can break this down into a pathway or a framework or stepping stones where learners can see this isn't a lumpy, 2-year course I've got to get through. I can see how I can jump, from skill to skill through each time earning something that's valuable that I can then demonstrate, to someone else. And finally, just as a really useful wrapper or a package, a way of me capturing that photo of me stripping down a motorcycle or a video of 30 seconds of me giving a presentation. Whatever it is, I've got a container that I can use, and it's not stuck on some Google Drive somewhere. Thinking about it from the issuer's perspective. So the first one is around motivation. Now, I know I'm not talking about motivation from like a Duolingo style, let's just give them a badge so they feel like they've, got a buzz from that. What I mean by motivation is allowing learners to see if they get this, it unlocks some opportunity. Very quick story, but I was once delivering a kind of a pitch like this to about 80 hospitality and catering students, and I was explaining this kind of badging framework that we developed, and there was a guy at the back, headphones on, and suddenly he realized that if he earned this particular credential, it would give him guaranteed paid work experience at the Grand Hotel. And he took his headphones off, and he was like, I'm sorry, did you just say that if I earn that, it gets me work, and then I can buy an Xbox? So that was the motivation point. It was the fact that this unlocked something that actually applied to them, not a Duolingo buzz. The other thing that you might want to do, why you might want to badge, is actually to recognize the really valuable skills that are outside of the standard curriculum. Okay, so we've all heard a lot about kind of durable skills or transferable skills. But if you're delivering, let's say, a motor vehicle, apprenticeship, there may not be a valid way of recognizing those, those skills that employers are really keen to evidence now. You might want to develop a really flexible pathway. So rather than a very linear program, can you basically break a program down into small, bite-sized steps and show that pathway, and where does that lead in terms of employment? And finally, from a branding point of view, you may, if you have your own digital badge, can you put your own stamp on it? When viewers of that badge see your logo, it builds trust, and they can understand, what as a provider you're delivering. And then finally, the third lens is from the consumer's perspective. So this is typically an employer, might be another training provider looking at prior learning, but what do they want? They want to see actual evidence of can you do the job, okay? So the ability to click through that problem solving and see a video of somebody under a car or fixing a tap, okay? That's really powerful. Thinking about the talk earlier around from Ventures was around, is there some kind of framework for what are employability skills and what do they look like? It's really hard to define that, but actually as a consumer of a badge, I know what perhaps good communication looks like for my organization. So being able to see a 30-second video is a very rich way of being able to determine that for myself. And then you may also be looking to use some kind of skills-based hiring or progression within your organization. So by defining a badge framework, you can encapsulate the kind of values and vision of your entire organization, so everyone's got a shared view of actually what are the skills that matter in our organization. Okay, so first thing is why. Second thing is, before you go and think, yeah, we need some of this, can you copy, clone, adapt before going and actually building this yourself? So there's loads of frameworks that already exist. This one is from Skills Builder. Okay, this one's particularly around kind of durable skills or transferable skills, but there's actually like a 16-step framework with definitions behind each one of these 21st century skills. So you don't have to build it yourself. However, if you decide to, this is an open resource tool. It's called the Badge Canvas, but it essentially captures everything around a badge on a single sheet of A4. But I wanted to just drill in to the top left-hand corner, because this is kind of what's really important. Think about, what do you need to do in order to earn the badge, okay? And I think, from my experience, the more specific you can be on that criteria, the better, because now it's valuable, it's unique. There's almost often a kind of a scarcity to it, and what we're not trying to do is just flood the market with everybody's got a showing up badge. Okay, but by making this really specific, it can help differentiate young people from, in terms of employment. Okay, and the other three around skills and knowledge, the behaviors, and the evidence. What is going to be shown? Well, what can I show in order to earn this badge? So, here's one I made earlier. Fictional badge, but when I was writing this, I wanted to explain or give a view of these badges don't have to be easy, okay? There's often a sort of race to the bottom when people think of digital badges. They've got low value or low significance. But let's take this one. So demonstrated their ability to bring at least 3 diverse stakeholders with different incentives to work towards a common goal, okay? That's not trivial. Has helped create a shared purpose and productive collaboration and built trust for at least 12 months. Now, I think if I was being awarded this badge, I'd be genuinely proud of it, okay? Because not very many people can actually say that, they've achieved this. And when we think about evidence, okay, it may be feedback. It might be a signed agreement that you've got from multiple partners. Okay, it could be case studies and blogs demonstrating the impact. You can align digital badges, so there may be some other standard or framework out there that your badge aligns to, so you don't have to kind of completely reinvent the wheel. And then you can also make them findable by applying tags, so that they're linked to what you're trying to solve. Okay, so step 1 is around that design and planning stage. Then there's the issue stage, okay? So, busy slide, but as I said before, the kind of issue has kind of been solved. There are lots of mature platforms out there, Open Badge Factory, Credly, CredSuite, Canvas, Credible, Navigator, that you can buy. They have different models associated with, is it pay per badge issue, pay per badge class, and so on. But there's so many out there, you can just review what the features that they provide and what fits best with you. But the things that you probably should be thinking about are, do we need this to integrate with our learning management system, for example? Are we interested in analytics? Do we care about how many users are using our badges? So there's a bunch of features, okay? But once you've really thought hard about why are we doing this, often the actual features that you need are pretty self-apparent. Okay, so that's the buy option. For any builders in the room, there's also a whole bunch of open source solutions out there. So, for example, this is from MIT, the DCC. They have an entire digital badging platform. There's a link to their GitHub at the bottom where you can essentially take the code, integrate it within your own platform, and immediately you've got a badging system ready to go. So, yeah, it doesn't have to cost. And then the third part is share. So this is often the kind of, not the barrier, but the least thought about stage. So a lot of organizations think, yeah, we're going to spend loads of time thinking about what are we going to badge, how are we going to issue. They never really think about, from the earner's perspective, how do they share. I've included this graphic just to show a range of ways that you can share. So, for example, when you are awarded a badge, you're going to get a sort of a permanent URL that you can put onto your CV. Anyone viewing that badge would click through that CV, see your badge, they can access all of the evidence and so on. Okay? You can, in this particular platform, share directly to social media. Okay? Or you can actually get a PDF to download. The PDF is like a printable certificate, which includes a QR code. The QR code would point back to that URL. So now anyone who's seeing it can then still access the real-world evidence that you generated in order to earn the badge. Or, as we talked about a little bit earlier with Josh, is having a passport. So this is like an app on your phone where you can bring in all of your different credentials and badges from, across your life that you're carrying around with you, and being able to share and control permissions as well of who do you want to be able to see that badge. Okay, so that's the kind of three-step process, and as I said, encourage you to think most closely around stage one. But I did want to just give you a couple of design tools that would also help. And these are pretty new. I only came across this one a few months ago, and this is from, it's called Co-Writer, but Craft Your Recognition. But what this tool allows you to do is just upload your entire course content, paste it in there, or attach it as a file, and hit generate, and it will use AI and uses this tool from University of Washington called Laser that analyzes all of your content and then generates you a badge straight away on the fly. Okay, so it'll take 30 seconds if you've got an existing scheme of work or course or to generate a badge. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it gives you a really good entry point, and it also creates what's called the JSON, which is the kind of the code that lives underneath the badge. Okay, so that's the first one. This is another interesting one. This is called a job posting skillitizer, and the reason I include this is I wanted to think about badging from an employer's perspective. So if you take the skillitizer, you chuck in any job title, okay, in here. So I put in motor vehicle technician and hit search. And what it eventually does is it picks out all of the specific skills that you need in order to do that job. Okay, so maintain vehicle records, automotive diagnostic equipment, car controls, and then all of the things that you need to be able to do in order to perform that job. This list is probably 4 or 5 times longer than what I could put on the screenshot. But the reason I thought it was interesting is because if you think about it from an employer's point of view, when they're hiring, this is what they want. Like, this is what they're looking for. And if you're a learner and you're looking at like a 2-year level 3 course, this is what you want to be doing, okay? But can you use a badge to break down some bite-sized skills so that after 1 month they feel like they can demonstrate that's what they can do now, okay? They're not fully qualified, but it's a stepping stone to show their progress, to show what they can do, and importantly, from the employer's perspective, they can see that badge, click through, and sure enough, they can see a video of somebody actually doing the job. Okay, so that's Skilletizer. And then the third and final tool I was just going to share, as Josh mentioned, we just finished this piece of work with the RSA. As part of that, we built a series of exemplar badges, okay, within each one of these sectors or use cases, and clicking through behind any of these will take you to a specific page. It'll give you all of the criteria and the metadata, and it allows you to download the actual badge file. So we've got it in 3 different formats for 3 different platforms, which are there for you to edit, modify, and use. And that's it.